Hey guys, Jensen here once again, and the first day of groups concluded quite a number of hours ago. But before we go into day two, let's take a look at the madness in the bot lane, Yuumi, or to quote the LEC caster Cadril, I hate that cat. Now this champion was played 4 times during the group stage on the first day, and let's take a look at some of the community reactions to the parasitic cat. Um, Coach for Golden Guardian Scenario. I'm sure people are really excited to watch a Yuumi meta at Worlds. That champ is so fun to watch, play with, or play against. Kabi, one of the casters for the amateur and academy scene, and also who casts the League Day Live, has a interesting limerick about it. A 16-year-old with 1.5k LP challenger support from Korea has just been picked up by a trainee squad. His trash is poppin', his Leona is flashy, his Bard is magical. He sits down for his first scrim and immediately looks at his coach and says, "First pick me that goddamn Yuumi." Now, some pro players had thoughts about this champion as well. Alfari, who is at Worlds, the top laner for Team Liquid. Yumi's a really fun champ. Round of applause to the genius responsible for designing this. Also, all the people who approved it and allowed it to be released, very well done to them too. And the mid laner for the Immortals LCS Team Insanity replied, saying that Yuumi is the most skilled champ in the game. Clearly, a lot of people are not very happy with this champion. Now, Treats, the support for SK Gaming, also had a tweet about this, shared his thoughts, asking for a petition to remove Yuumi from the game, and asking for likes to support this idea. In 53 minutes, he garnered 2,300 likes. OPL caster Rusty says the Worlds is effing cancelled, and he can't watch an entire Worlds with this parasite cat in the metagame. Whereas the coach for C9, Vigor V2, noted that people's bad laning is actually the problem here, as it's getting them really abused when you're allowed to blind pick Yuumi every game. And people auto-attacking the Yuumi and AD carry, so the wave pushes to Yuumi, allowing them a free crash, bounce, and playing for all-ins. TLDR don't do short trades, and Yuumi will sustain. Now, in the past, Yuumi was seen as this game-warping kitten with an unbeatable scaling factor attached to her, and she will warp the game to be all about either protecting or attacking the Yuumi. So let's examine some of her strengths and her weaknesses. For one, her early laning is actually rather strong at levels 1 and 2, and that's because she has two bonus spells at level 1 with the 3 point in the W and an additional combat summer as she doesn't have to take flash. And the way that her W works is that it allows Yuumi to instantly reposition for the trading triangle, which means that when AD carries going to trade auto attacks with each other, Yuumi will always be there to instantly pop up on the other side, away from the enemy support, and be able to contribute to that. And this forms Yuumi's main trading pattern on top of lending the Prowling Projectile, the Q of cooldown. There was a recent change in Dispatch which might have seen a resurgence as the Bop and Block gave her a shield instead of every 18 seconds level 1 to every 14 seconds. This meant that in the first few waves, Yuumi will be able to go for this trading pattern twice every wave on 11-18. Now, Yuumi in the mid game, she empowers bruisers and assassins and she's able to hide on them and makes them extremely sticky. And in the late game, she's an extremely strong in combat warmocks, which means that the champion that she's attached to is very hard to kill. And this is where the scaling factor comes in of sorts. However, the change on 10.13 removed this factor as they removed the late game scaling aspect of it by capping out the number of times the Yuumi can heal once she reaches those stages of the game by increasing the amount of mana required, tagging it instead of having it be attached to a flat amount to being a percentage of Yumi's maximum mana. If we were to examine the weaknesses of Yuumi, this champion, as always, offers very little dive protection as she has no immediate reliable crowd control, and the same applies in the later stages of the game in team fights as well, when it comes to dealing with assassins that are looking to one-shot the AD carry. And Yuumi is generally weak in mid 3v3 scenarios, as most enchanters are, as she doesn't have any crowd control to lock people down or immediate burst to follow up from her own teammates' crowd control as well. And being a support that has to be attached to another champion, she's rather squishy, has limited warding options, And the interesting thing is that with the changes to the in-combat warm-ups feature of Yuumi, she can actually be outskilled by more efficient enchanters. So on 11.18, the way that people perceive Yuumi as this game warping kitten no longer really holds true. She actually functions more of a lane bully enchanter, as evidenced by the type of pairings we see with Yuumi in the bot lane. In the past, we would see the likes of Asriel and Garen to keep us safe, whereas now the main pairing that was played with Yuumi so far in Worlds was Misfortune taking comment, and it functions as a very strong poke and bully lane. The other aspect of Yuumi that is different now is that Yuumi is no longer this scaling monster that forces you to answer her in the early game before she gets out of control, and instead she spikes on one item, as we see from the item choices as well, be going for the Ludens to add into the amount of adaptive stats that she provides to the champion she's attached to, adding additional damage as well, or going for the Moonstone to provide the traditional healing that Yuumi is commonly associated with. So how should teams be playing against Yuumi if you're facing this in your rank flex games or if you're facing this um, in one of the tournaments that you might be playing this or Clash, for example? Right. One of the things that you can aim for is the same tools that are very effective against Enchanted supports will apply here. Mismatching your jungle potting in order to create better opportunities for your jungler to then gank or dive the opponent bot lane, in this case it's the Yuumi lane, will be very effective. And one way you can create smash jungle potting is also by invading the opponent's level 1, if you have such an option. Another thing you can do is what EDG did, is to freeze mids to force 3v3s, which attacks Yumi's weak skirmishing, as she doesn't have a lot of immediate available burst. And with the way that supports currently play in the game, Yumi will only hit level 9 at around 9 minutes. So there's clear windows for you to attack and force these 3v3s in the mid lane. Itemizing properly in the bot lane as well is really important. The long sword into 3 pot start, as with any against any enchanted lane, will be very useful, as this enables you to have options to freeze or trade HP for priority that can create ganks or dives on your opponents. Ban pick wise, going for a more efficient enchanted support is an option, and I think that a champion that has been out of the meta for some time that will be very effective against this Misfortune Yumi combination is actually Senna. Going for global pressure on bot lanes, Twisted Fate and Rise have always been very good options playing against Yuumi compositions, as it's very easy for you to force the 4-man setup to dive the Yuumi lane. And denying the strong booster options, which is what Yuumi tends to function with best at the moment, especially the Lee Sin and Talon. Graves is appearing a little bit in the World's meta as well in the top lane. To get rid of these options for the opponent team would be very useful as well. Now let's examine the 4 teams that played against Yuumi at Worlds on day 1 of the group stage. Right? FPX and Detonation Focus Me, they both took losses, and we can see the mistakes that they made. Where FPX, while they did create a mismatch jungle potting scenario, they did not manage their lane well, going for short trades at level 1, and they had a weaker mid 2v2 as well. And for Detonation Focus Me, it was the same issue, going for a double AP mid jungle, they had a weaker mid 2v2, they went all in at level 2 and gave over 2 kills to the Yuumi. Whereas for EDG, they understood the weaknesses of the champion and they played accordingly. They had good lane management to enable push for the match jungle potting, enabling their Lee Sin to take a double crab against their opponents, and they pressured the mid lane freezers really well, creating leads in the LeBlanc versus Zoe matchup in the mid lane. Whereas Rogue, they had a very good composition to deal with the Yuumi, and I think the Lucian Nami should probably be one of the better answers into Yuumi thus far, as this champion not only provides you the sustain to deal with Yuumi Smoke, with the strength of the Electrocute Nami, with a E combined with the Lucian, it should be able to set up for dives and ganks on the Yuumi lane rather easily as well. Combining this with a Twist of Fate, this was the formula for success that allowed Rogue to find the win against Cloud9 in the last day of Group 1. Now that wraps things up. Many people dislike this cat, but I do think that Yuumi is no longer the menace that she was 2 seasons ago, or when she was at the peak in spring of Season 10. There's quite a fair bit of counterplay, and it's rather interesting to see the way that teams are playing around this champion thus far. We were to see if this is a cheese pick that dominated the first day, and if people can adapt moving forward, or will Yuumi continue to dominate the meta and cause Rusty to want to cancel this World's event. With that, this is Jensen. Get hyped for Worlds.